listeners, this is Derek from the Rich Dad Company. If you've been listening to the show, you know that we've been teasing the next big thing at Rich Dad for months now. After nearly a year of development, planning, and waiting for the perfect economic climate, we're finally ready to launch one of the most ambitious and powerful initiatives in Rich Dad history. Go to buyyourfirstinvestmentproperty.com, and you will learn directly from the real experiences of Kim and Robert Kiyosaki about how to invest using your time instead of your cash, how to turn mistakes into opportunities, how to invest for value, and, most important, how to make investments that generate monthly cash flow and return capital gains. Buyyourfirstproperty.com isn't just for experienced real estate investors. It shows beginners how to start small, capitalize on your own neighborhood, and learn the real meaning of fixer-upper, FSBO, vacancy rate, and zoning laws. Quit guessing at how the market might fluctuate or how the pros make money in real estate. Learn from the real experiences of people who've made millions and millions of dollars in real estate. In uncertain times, take control of your own future. Go to buyyourfirstproperty.com. Do it today. This is only being promoted for a limited time. Go to buyyourfirstproperty.com. Buyyourfirstproperty.com.
Are you? This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. There's a different theme song today because this is the day after. Now, remember, this is a pre-recorded show, but this is the day after one of the most important elections in our time, in our history. So that's why we have Hail to the Chief. You know, my friend and co-author Donald Trump is now president of the United States. And, you know, I woke up going stunned and somewhat afraid. Not about him, but what he faces. You know, I'm saying he's taking on a huge task right now. So anyway, it's a very important show. We have a very special guest today. He's been a hero of mine since, I believe, the 70s or 80s. He's Dr. Ron Paul. He's a former U.S. congressman from Texas, former presidential candidate. And I first came across Ron Paul with a little book talking about gold. And I was so amazed reading that book because it really turned me. I was already kind of a gold bug, but I really became a gold bug after reading Dr. Paul's book. So I'm very happy to welcome to the show, but when I ask him to give us insights as to how he says the Trump presidency will be, some of the challenges he faces, but also kind of some of the insider toing and froings that go on with presidential elections. Kim.
The country is a little stunned and surprised at the outcome, and where we go from here, as I've heard many people say, either you vote for Hillary and you're voting for the same direction, or you vote for Trump and it's a mystery ride. I think we're in for a big mystery ride. Welcome to the show, Dr. Paul.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you today.
And I want to give our congratulations to your son, Rand Paul, for being reelected to the Senate.
Yes, he did very well.
Yes,
we were glad to see it.
Fantastic.
So we just want, you know, this is an open mic. We have no agenda here. We're not Republicans. Well, maybe my wife is. But anyway, I do my best to keep an open mind on these whole things. Just what is your opinion of just what happened?
Well, I think it's a consequence of something that's been building for a long time. I think you could even trace it back to Ross Perot with his concerns about spending and debt, and he had a presence, and people have talked about it, but I don't think that the average person understands really where the problem is, and it is a consequence of a major philosophic position that our country has been following for a good many years, and I would date it back to the Depression, where we shifted from the emphasis on free markets to managed markets, Keynesianism, economic planning, inflationism, Federal Reserve stuff, income taxes. And when the country remains wealthy, which it has, they get by with it, but it keeps building and building. And some people live off the producers, and now the people living off the producer are outnumbering the producers, and those who can produce have sort of getting out of town because of the onerous burden of taxation and regulations and difficulties and all the rules. And but this compounds the problem because the working class, the working people, their standard of living goes down, and their real wages do not go up. And this is characteristic. This is This is expected that when you destroy a currency, prices do go up. And if they went up evenly for everybody, it would be no problem. But they go up and benefits one group at the expense of another, usually wipes out the middle class. And I was impressed by the election that the hostility and the anger has built to this extreme where Trump was able to capture this and surprise a lot of people. But he was able to do this by appealing to those individuals that feel like they're threatened, that their standard of living is going down. I've argued that people don't basically vote from their heart, and sometimes they don't vote from their brains, but they vote from their bellies in the sense, well, do I have a job? And what's going to happen? So confidence has been lost. But once again, it's the confidence factor that is the big deal. But even those on the receiving end, the people who get their Social Security, they're starting to worry. Is it really going to be solvent? Pension funds are being attacked. But this is an attack on a whole philosophy. It's not an attack. See, I never wanted to claim that, well, it's all Obama's fault. He did this, he did that. Obamacare is the result. So if you look at it, the Republicans are very much responsible because Republicans and Democrats and the majority of Americans have endorsed, this whole idea that you can get something for free and that all you have to have are good managers in Washington and have good managers at the Fed, and they bought into this. And the whole truth is they don't know how to manage it, and this is the inevitable consequence. People get angry and upset, and I think Trump tapped into this, and much more so than a lot of people predicted.
But you did also, and didn't sort of Bernie Sanders tap into that? I mean, did you think Trump had a chance?
Yes, I did, but I think he still surprised me on the upside. I didn't know there'd be that many. I thought it could be a closer election, but I thought it just seems so strange that you could take somebody like Hillary in as much trouble as she's been in. The American people, especially when the media was on the side of Hillary, I didn't think that they could be defeated. But they found out that in Europe with Brexit, with the British getting out of the European Union, there's a lot of concern, and it reflects our foreign policy. It reflects migration as well as immigration. People have to blame people, so I think some of our problems, we're looking for scapegoats. Instead of looking at the philosophic problems, we just say, well, it's all those Mexicans, that's their fault, it's Chinese, and I don't agree with that. It's not Obama's fault. It's a philosophy that has been endorsed by the people. It's been taught in our universities, and right now the challenge, and this is one thing that Trump has, sort of challenged too, and that is the cultural Marxism. That's insane, and that might have wakened up a lot of people. This whole idea that we spend so much time on exactly who should go into which bathroom. I mean, we should have been able to figure that out a few years ago.
No kidding. So do you think, Dr. Paul, that Trump will have any impact in with this breaking up this elitist system? Can he impact that?
Not very easily, because they're very powerful. The deep state is very powerful, and they're not completely on the outside of the Trump's people, because the neocons are associated to some degree with Trump. When you see Giuliani and Bolton and others, I think that no, the pressures are going to be tremendous, and I don't think presidents have much leeway. I think there's so much power in the CIA and the FBI and the control of foreign policy, the control of economic policy. I think that our country doesn't need to be in all these countries around the world, and yet both candidates supported massively increasing our military spending. Well, how many bombs do you need? I mean, we spend more money than most of the other countries put together. So the spending is going to continue, and there's a lot of pressure. So there's a lot of good instincts with there'll be a lot of good instincts with the new administration. But believe me, we haven't eliminated those special interests that also are very, very powerful.
Once again, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Today, our special guest is Dr. Ron Paul. He's a former U.S. congressman from Texas, former presidential candidate. And if you were listening, I said I put him in the same category as Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump. They were like the disruptors. They tapped into the angst and anger of the real people versus the Washington elite and the academic types who think they know more than everybody else. And so, Kim, any comments you would like to make?
Well, here's what I'd like to know, Dr. Paul, is the system is so big and it is so massive. What can Trump do? Can he make change?
Well, he could. Timing is difficult. In Austrian economics, you can tell trends and which way things are going, and things have a long way to go before they get cleaned up. But timing is very, very difficult. There could be an event within the next week that could pop up way beyond the control of even Obama or Trump that causes a major clash internationally, could change the attitudes of everybody, and the American people's attitudes would change. So you just don't know, what that might be. But no. The difficulty is that the changes that are necessary are not politically palatable because somebody's going to have to give up something.
Yes. And
you read articles now, well, we only can get out of this if we sacrifice. Everybody has to sacrifice, which I think is wrong. I think that is absolutely incorrect. It's a condition that exists because of our system that we have. But if our government did what I would like, I would not have to sacrifice anything. I want my freedom. I want my responsibility. I want to take care of myself. I want to be left alone. I want to have my privacy. I don't want anything from anybody else. And I want to live in a safe country where I have a national defense, but I don't want to police the world and all. So to me, it's no sacrifice whatsoever. I get my freedom back. But today, it's, we can't do this. And in a way, somebody will seem to suffer because you're saying you should balance the budget. Yes. Well, somebody's going to have cut, so they have to be sacrificed. Well, maybe it'll be the military-industrial complex. Maybe it'll be Wall Street that's making a bundle of money, and maybe it'll be the people who have contracts with the government. But those are the people that have been ripping us off, and the people that both Trump and Sanders tapped into.
Well, let me ask you this question real quickly, because the Democrats used to be Louisiana. I mean, Hillary even lost Arkansas, where Bill comes from. How come in the state of Texas and Arizona they say the Latinos didn't show up? What from a politician, why is that? Why didn't they show up?
Well, maybe the economic ideas are very important, and he tapped into this, that there's not enough jobs. Maybe he used scapegoating. This is what I didn't like about, the immigration thing, because if you have a healthy economy, you need people coming and going because there's a start, you need more labor. But maybe we don't give enough credit to the minorities that, they think like everybody, that they just want a job. And maybe deep down in their heart that they know that some of these laws that we pass, our companies are leaving. I think Trump was pretty good on showing the exportation of jobs. They were occurring. I don't think he fully understood it, why that was the case and how to bring them back. But I think he tapped into that. And this whole idea that minorities are just a monolith, and they have to do exactly what they're told, and they don't think in terms of a natural tendency. I'd like a job, and he's talking about a job.
Well, let me ask you this: when he says he's going to build a wall, when the campaign was early, he's going to build a wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it. What went through your mind? What went through your mind? You went, oh my God.
That was crazy. and that even came up in our campaigns, 4 years ago, and I was positively opposed against walls. One time I said, I don't like walls at all. Libertarians want to believe in openness and free trade, but we don't want to be penalized for people coming in. I says, besides, too often the walls that you build keep people in, not people out. And it is true. I mean, if you're a world traveler these days, or if you want to take 10 ounces of gold and just go to Mexico, you might not have it if you go through the border. You know, you can't. You have some financial inability to move about the world already. So I don't like walls. I want to tear them down. But I think, you know, I think maybe he got a pass on that. I think maybe it was so absurd. Yeah, we're going to build this wall and we're going to send them a bill. I mean, it's sort of.
But as a politician, what went on in your head and the people says? They seem to have loved it.
They what?
They seem to have loved that idea. I mean, let's vote for him now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so absurd. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. He's a friend of mine.
It is absurd.
Well, you know, I think it's. I'm more anxious to try to get to the bottom of it all and blame ideology as well as bipartisan cooperation and blame Keynes more than I would want to blame everybody else. Yep. But politicians would like to. We have to be the greatest and the best, the exceptional nation. Our responsibility is to take care of everybody, and we can do no harm. But the need then is to have a scapegoat, and I use this word in the debates. I said, I think that they're using immigrants as a scapegoat.
Amen. That's what they were doing.
And to blame somebody instead of blaming ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
This whole idea. Since you're a Trump supporter, I don't want to offend you.
Oh no, you can't offend us.
No, there's no way you can offend me on this one.
We kind of see both sides. We see both sides. Three sides.
What about the currency stuff with China? China's a currency manipulator, sure, just like America's.
I know.
Yeah.
We're the biggest manipulator in the world, and we have the reserve currency of the world, and we printed at will. So it's that's a crazy issue too.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Once again, it's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Our guest today is Dr. Ron Paul, former U.S. Congressman from Texas, former presidential candidate. And I put him in the reason I'm thrilled to have him on our program because I put him in the same category as Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump and Ron Paul. And they were disruptors. They said things that people cheered and loved, but the political machine rolled them over. So when Trump basically crushed the Bushes as well as the Clintons, I said that guy is committing political suicide, yet he still won.
Yeah, it is crazy. Let me go back to Dr. Paul. You talked about jobs, and that was a big issue in the campaign, was for Donald talking about creating jobs. He's talking about reducing corporate tax, so that would hopefully bring back more money, more jobs. He's talking about reducing regulations on small business. Do you think that will make an impact on creating jobs?
He's talking about reparation of taxes from overseas.
Right.
Yeah, no, that could be very helpful. And that's something you could do without the requirement that eventually will have to come, and that is liquidation of debt and get rid of the malinvestment and quit, running debt and printing money. But I think what we have to do is eventually recognize the end of an era, just as the Soviets had to recognize the end of communism. And it comes to an end, and I think that was a miraculous event to see communism just dissipate. And I had been drafted in the 60s at height of the Cold War and all, and we had to be prepared for nuclear holocaust and all this kind of stuff. And it turned out the failure of ideas is so significant. So that's what we're facing today is the failure of ideas.
Right. So, this is my question, because you've been very, very opposed to the Fed. Is that part of your... Is he going to fire Yellen, or what's he going to do on this one?
Yeah, no. Well, I don't know what will happen on the short run. On the long run, the Fed will probably self-destruct. But your earlier question was, what about lowering the taxes and regulations? Would that be helpful? I think it could be. I thought Rand had a good suggestion this morning. He says, don't come up with 1,000 pages of total tax reform, and you'll fight over it for a year. Why don't you come up with a one-pager? That was my rule in Congress. Well, anything worthwhile, you can put it on one page. Yep. And he says, let's lower the corporate tax to 15%. You can do it on one page and vote it and get it done. And I think that would give a boost and give us some more time to figure out how to take care of a lot of the people. But right now, the programs here, the pension fund system, here we are spending all this money overseas and the need to take care of our veterans, and yet the pension funds, federal pension funds, Social Security and everything else, But what about the private pension funds? They're not going to allow those to go broke. They're going to print money and bail them out. And finally, the confidence will be lost, and the end of the era of Keynesian interventionism will be very clear to everyone. And then we'll have to sit down and pick up the pieces and have a sound monetary system design, and it won't be done by Yellen.
And again, you live on the border like Arizona and Texas and those guys. What's the chance of NAFTA? What do you think he's going to do with that?
I don't think it'll change, although I was strongly opposed to NAFTA. But what bugs me on that is sort of a philosophical argument, because some libertarians like managed trade and NAFTA and WTO and all these things. But that's because their goal is to lower tariffs, which I'm not against. But if you have an international organization, it's an entangling alliance, as you've given the power to the president to design it, the Congress excludes themselves, and it's managing the trade for the benefit of special interests. Has nothing to do with free markets, although, even those who are more popular say, well, no, this is free trade. We don't want free trade. We want fair trade. But they're really not talking about free trade. A lot of those individuals that always argued for this NAFTA and different things, they were terrible. They're the ones who want to put on sanctions and embargoes and penalize people, so they're not really free traders. And I believe that people and goods ought to cross borders, so armies don't cross borders. But the one thing is you can't you can't subsidize anybody and provide special interests. So I'm for a more open immigration policy, but I don't think you should be taxed to take care of them, and given welfare. I think that's where the real problem, especially when it hurts us financially and it hurts our job and our job position too.
So speaking of armies and crossing borders and trade, what do you think about Putin and then NATO? I mean, because I was just in Moscow last week, and they love Trump and Putin. Then I went to the Ukraine. They hate Trump and Putin.
Ukraine.
Right.
Well, I don't know which Ukrainians. It depends on which part of Ukraine you're in. If you're in East Ukraine, they'd more likely like Putin. What I'm opposed to is not pretending I know exactly what's good for Ukraine. I could theoretically give you something, but I am adamantly opposed to what our government did, a couple years ago by getting involved in throwing their elected leaders and putting in Poroshenko. I mean, that we're always involved in this kind of activity, and of course, this was just precipitating a crisis with Russia, which is totally unnecessary. And here we are on the verge of shooting at each other's airplanes in Syria. And Russia has a much better argument for their presence in Syria than we do. I mean, we're invaders. We're trying to destroy a government. Yeah. And, but that's a bad government, they say. So, no, I think that we should stay out of those kind of conflicts and stay out of any entangling alliances, whether they're trade or mutual defense treaties.
And Dr. Paul, let's say you got elected president. What would be the number one thing you would focus your efforts on? Because I would vote for you. Because I would vote for you all day long.
The whole thing is there is no one thing you can do in one day, but I imagine you could deal with getting rid of the income tax, even though getting rid of the Fed everything is important. But what you need is, if I could wave a wand, I would wave a wand and teach everybody in the country what the purpose of the government is, and it's to protect liberty. Nothing more, nothing less. Protect liberty. Then you wouldn't have an income tax or a Federal Reserve. You wouldn't have all this spending. You would have freedom determining everything. But the prevailing attitude of the people on what the role of government ought to be is what the founders addressed. And they did their best to try to limit that, but it didn't work. It's gone. So presidents don't now look at Article 1, Section 8 to decide what would happen if the presidents did that and just work on that. Enforce Article 1, Section 8, and Congress should participate, and they shouldn't do any of this and reject the whole notion that, I'll just write an executive order and do what I want.
So there's a final question. We had... You have the Bush dynasty, and you have the Clinton dynasty. What do you think Trump did to them?
Hopefully he destroyed them. but I think in a way, though, they've destroyed themselves. It's sort of the way communism disappeared. I think they're part of the end of what is going to be inevitable, and we might want to talk about philosophically, but in reality, it self-destructs. Just like we're not going to ever have a vote in a year or 2 or 3, no matter how much Trump would even like to do it. We're not going to have a vote to abolish the Federal Reserve. But the Federal Reserve may not be here in 5 years, especially the way it is now.
Why is that? Why it seems like how is that? Why would you say that? How can it not be here in 5 years?
Well, because it's doing something that is impossible. They don't have the wisdom to do it. They don't know what interest rates should be, and they don't know how long they can just print money and take care of all the deficits, public or private, and just print the money, because there will come a day when the confidence is lost, and the more they print and the more they try to patch it up and help Wall Street, the worse the conditions are going to get. And right now, there's been more challengings of the Federal Reserve than ever before. What a difference from when I first went to Congress. I mean, nobody even cared or asked any questions. Now, even on the regular news program, business news programs, they're talking about, boy, the Fed has dug a hole for themselves or up against the wall, and they did this wrong. So, no, it's the end of central banking as we know it.
So it's end of the Clintons, end of the Bushes, and end of the Fed. That's pretty good.
That's a good result. I like that.
That's great. That
gives me hope.
Good step in the right direction.
So I want to just give our listeners your website, Ron. It's ronpaullibertyreport.com. And you have several books: The Revolution, a Manifesto, and the Fed in 2009, Liberty Defined, and The School Revolution, a New Answer to Our Broken Education System.
You speak. You're a man after my own heart.
Yep.
So, Dr. Paul, thank you very much. Again, congratulations to Rand, your son. And thank you for doing and speaking and inspiring people like me to wake up.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your work. We appreciate it greatly.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep going.
Bye-bye.
Going to fire Janet Yellen and fix the Fed. And when you come back, we'll be talking to a Fed insider.
Special offer. First, they have a wrap.
The key to achieving your dreams is to develop a rich mindset instead of an excuse mindset. Instead of saying, I can't afford that, ask yourself, how can I afford that? It's amazing how a simple shift in thinking can open a world of new ideas and endless possibilities. Let the Rich Dad Company help kickstart your journey to financial freedom. Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Company have compiled Robert's top secrets to creating a rich mindset, now available in a 10-minute ebook, How to Achieve a Rich Mindset. This offer is available for a limited time only, so get yours today. Get your free ebook, How to Achieve a Rich Mindset. Go to richdad.com and look for the banner. Again, this is available only for a few days, so act fast. Go to richdad.com and look for the How to Achieve a Rich Mindset banner.
It's vital to protect yourself and your company. LLC, LP, S, or C Corp. Let Corporate Direct guide you through the process of forming a corporation or LLC. Every business owner and real estate investor needs asset protection. Corporate Direct is owned by Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton and is Robert Kiyosaki's choice for corporate formation. Mention Rich Dad and receive $100 off a formation. Call 800-600-1760 or visit online at corporatedirect.com. That's corporatedirect.com.
The key to achieving your dreams is to develop a rich mindset instead of an excuse mindset. Instead of saying, I can't afford that, ask yourself, how can I afford that? It's amazing how a simple shift in thinking can open a world of new ideas and endless possibilities. Let the Rich Dad Company help kickstart your journey to financial freedom. Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Company have compiled Robert's top secrets to creating a rich mindset, now available in a 10-minute ebook, How to Achieve a Rich Mindset. This offer is available for a limited time only, so get yours today. Get your free ebook, How to Achieve a Rich Mindset. Go to richdad.com and look for the banner. Again, this is available only for a few days, so act fast. Go to richdad.com and look for the How to Achieve a Rich Mindset banner.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And that song, again, is Hail to the Chief. And Donald Trump just got coronated into the new president of the United States. Can you believe that? And all of our podcasts are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them so you can listen to this program again. And if you have friends and family where the content of the show is important to you and them, please re-listen to this program. So our next special guest, she's a big favorite of mine. She's very irreverent. Is Danielle DiMartino Booth. She's a president at Money Strong LLC. But her claim to fame is she's the former senior financial analyst with the Federal Reserve of Dallas. So she is an insider into this mysterious, strange thing called the Fed. Any comments, Kim?
Well, yes, we just had Dr. Ron Paul on, and he interestingly said at the end of the program that the Fed is going to blow up in about 5 years anyway. And I know that Danielle is all about reinventing the Fed. So
Not blowing it up.
Not blowing it up. So I just want to start with Danielle. First of all, welcome to the show, Danielle. So happy to have you here after this big election.
Good to be here.
What do you think about Mr. Trump being elected?
Well, I think that it is an intuitive result to an untenable situation.
Sounds very diplomatic.
What does what do you mean by untenable? That's the question.
Well, I'll tell you, I just got off the phone with Bill Dunkelberg, and he heads up the National Federation of Independent Business. And he shot me over, and I shared it with you, kind of a top 10 list of small business owners' concerns. And only the bottom 10, only number 10 on this list of top 10 had anything to do with business. The others had to do with how impossible it's become to conduct business in this country.
Yes.
And how much worse things have gotten over the past 8 years. So that's why I say it's an intuitive result, because we are a great country. We are an entrepreneurial country. And I think the voters have basically said it is time for us to get back to doing business.
So do you, Danielle, think that Mr. Trump can make any impact on, he's talking about repealing Obamacare, he's talking about reducing corporate taxes for companies overseas to come back to America, he's talking about reducing regulation on small business here in the U.S. Do you think he can make any impact on that? Can you think he can help small business come back?
Well, I certainly feel that small businesses feel that they've been ignored over this past administration. And I think that given the outcome of the congressional election, I think that that's much more important and critical to Trump being able to get things done. I would say that, yes, there's a very high chance that he'll be able to do everything you've just mentioned, and with good reason, and it's about time.
Good. So let's get back to the subject. The reason you're on this program is you're a former senior financial analyst with the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. First question, why is the Fed so important to the world?
The Fed is so important to the world because we are, like it or not, a global, interconnected financial system. We rely upon one another. We learned that lesson during the financial crisis. We've been reminded of that lesson with the situation in Greece and in the Eurozone over the years. We were reminded once again when China devalued its currency in anticipation of last December's first interest rate hike. So it is the central bank to the world. It has the most power to affect change in financial conditions, and that's why it's important.
But isn't it kind of a criminal organization, the way it just prints money and it's not transparent and it does things without permission from anybody else?
Criminal. I probably wouldn't use that word.
Well, it lends a lot of...
I would, however, say that the Fed is...
I'm just putting you on the spot.
No, that's fine. But I would agree with you that the Fed is comprised of unelected officials who have stepped beyond their mandate and now take too much liberty that impinges our collective liberty.
So what you're saying, the Fed basically manipulates the world economy or manages or influences.
I think that they would think that they safeguard it. I prefer your word, which is manipulates.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's a criminal organization personally, but that's just my opinion, because I was around in 1971 when Nixon took us off the gold standard, and then they could just start printing. I also have no respect for this guy Greenspan or Bernanke. And, so I'm going, how in the world can they bail out the rich at the expense of the poor and middle class? That's been my grind and my rant for years. So,
and I've been right there alongside you. And when I was on the inside advising Richard Fisher, I was jumping up and down and my hair was on fire, as was his, as Bernanke was taking interest rates down to the zero bound, because that's what a model told him to do.
And that's the problem, isn't it?
It would ignite the wealth effect, which is a bunch of hooey.
Right. So the rich
radio,
get rich.
So I won't use the real word.
Right. So the rich get richer, but the poor and middle class get hammered. That's why there's no savings. You have pension plans, and federal as well as private, are in serious trouble with zero interest rates. And the Fed, that's why I say it's a criminal organization, because it just worked for the rich. That's my opinion.
It's definitely the actions that have been taken by the Fed have widened the inequality gap, and they have put our nation's social fabric at risk. And that's not hyperbole. It's not. I think that you will see more in the way of social unrest in the coming years as some of these pension issues are undertaken by our judiciary.
So, Danielle, Ron Paul made the comment that he thought the Fed would be dead in 5 years. It would kind of implode on itself, because he was saying it was the end of an era with Trump coming in. What's your opinion on that?
Look, I think that the best, and I've maintained this for a very long time, I had deep fears about what Hillary Clinton would do with the Fed. I think that she would have put the Fed on life support and that we would have seen negative interest rates. Now, they can still take actions, but I would have to agree that they're coming to the end of a very long era, and that end will be expedited by President Trump.
And how? What's that going to look like when you say it'll be expedited? It'll be at the end of it. What does that mean?
Well, I don't think that he would reappoint Janet Yellen. Okay. Again, go back to the fact that the Republicans have the Senate, and that you need Senate confirmation to fill those two open vacancies on the Federal Reserve. It's completely within his rights, and it's doable for him to fill those vacancies that Obama has been forced to leave vacant all these years. So it's within his rights to start to see mutiny and true dissent among the governors, something we haven't seen since 2005.
Among the governors? Oh, interesting.
Among those on the Board of Governors who have become a mealy-mouthed, quiet, acquiescent, yes-man society who refuse to go up against the chair, in this case, the chairwoman.
So how would you fix it? Being an insider to the Fed, what can be done? If we're at zero interest rates going to negative interest rates, and all you can do is raise a quarter point, it's not going to do any good. I mean, how would you fix the Fed?
Look, I've said for years, and by the way, we cannot end the Fed unless you'll sleep at night knowing that the bankers are tending to themselves. Unless you bring back Glass-Steagall, in which case the Fed is not as needed. But in my personal opinion, you don't invite the fox into the henhouse. Doesn't work that way.
Well, it was Clinton who repealed Glass-Steagall, he and Rubin.
Oh, the Committee to Save the World, of course. Yeah. But Glass-Steagall, in my opinion, needs to come right back. There's no reason taxpayers should be held accountable for going to the casino.
Do you think that's something that's possible to happen, that Glass-Steagall will be reinstated?
I think anything is possible right now. I think that the markets are elated because they're starting to realize that anything is possible, and that you've got a pragmatist who's run businesses in the White House for the first time in heaven knows how long. And when he finally chose his final economic team, he was completely rational, and he's put very sober people on his economics team. And I think that right now we're seeing a rally in the markets because anything is possible. I think Trump would put the people who are on the receiving end of Fed policy on the Board of Governors. And I think that he would replace Yellen in 2018 with a pragmatist.
That's good news. Once again, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Trump just got elected a crowned emperor of the United States and the world, and we're talking about what's going to happen now. Our first guest was Ron Paul, He was a senator as well as candidate for president of the United States, and I put Ron Paul with Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump in the same category, people that were shaking it up. We're talking about the Fed needs to possibly end, but also the end of the Clinton and the Bush, I don't know what you call those guys, the elite group. So our new guest is Danielle DiMartino Booth, president of Strong Money LLC. She's the author of the book Fed Up, an insider's take on why the Federal Reserve is bad for America. And Danielle offers a unique perspective because she's an insider to the Fed. And all the times I've studied the Fed, I cannot understand it. And I've studied it for years. And I still don't understand it. All I know is that in 1913, the Fed was created, but also in 1913, that was a 16th Amendment, which allowed taxation to come into play. So the Fed is this mysterious organization that probably moved off from the Bank of England to the United States. It set up, in my opinion, the Great Depression, and then we could start printing money to save the economy. And now we're in this huge, huge mess. And I'm not blaming the Fed only, but we need to be more aware of how the Fed functions in the world economy. Would you say that's accurate, Danielle?
I would say that is absolutely accurate. And at the risk of tooting my own horn, Fed Up is written in very plain English.
Thank you.
And it will be a primer, and it will be a source of education for every American who needs to understand that the Federal Reserve is not some black box, but has been directly responsible for the shift in our economy towards a debt-driven economy.
Amen.
Regardless of whether you're talking about households, corporations, or the government.
And I love the title because that's where people are today. I think that's why Trump got elected, because people are fed up. And I also think it's interesting you were talking about the stock markets rallying, because I remember all the anchors and journalists and all the media saying, oh, if Trump gets elected, the market's going to crash. It's going to be a disaster, da-da-da-da. And Trump gets elected and markets don't crash. As a matter of fact, they're getting excited. So
imagine that.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. Let me ask one other question, because Trump ran this whole thing on the middle class and helping the middle class get jobs and all this. What do you think Trump can do to help the middle class?
Well, I think the incoming administration can incentivize. I think Trump and Hillary Clinton, for that matter, saying we're going to bring jobs back to America is kind of hollow. You can't force at gunpoint these jobs to come back. What you can do is make it more like Texas, nationwide. 9,000 companies have abandoned California over the past few years. 90% of them have landed in the great state of Texas. Why? Because it's a place where you can do business. And I think the potential to unleash the ability to do business nationwide is in the hands of the future administration.
And how does a Fed pay? Because I'm still on this Fed thing. How does a Fed play into that? Other than that, like I said, in my opinion, what Greenspan and Bernanke did, they just bailed out the rich. And so how does the Fed going to recompensate? Or how does it do any good after that?
Well, again, if you were to bring practical people in who had to eat the Fed's cooking, right, who didn't have defined benefit plans for the rest of their life, along with health care, okay? So the people running the Fed, the people at the top of the Fed have no idea what the implications of zero interest rate policy are for retirees, because they don't have to be on the receiving end of it. But if you put people who are on the receiving end and have been on the receiving end of it, they'll never let interest rates go to the zero bound again. They'll make sure that we have something called a curve in our yield curve, and that the banking system can operate the way it was designed to do and allocate capital, and that without interest rates being manipulated, and by agreeing that you never go to the zero bound again, you bring back this old-fashioned notion called price discovery, and you let markets get back to their natural functioning mechanisms.
So you're saying it's very important to pay attention to who Trump may put in those two spots at the Fed.
Those two spots will be critical. Mm-hmm. In my humble opinion, Janet Yellen withstood a triple dissent at the September meeting because they were the lowly dissents of regional Fed presidents. had she forced through the interest rate hikes that it's apparent she wanted to, I think she would have had a double descent on the part of governors, which she did not want those optics.
You're saying she's weak.
Trump will. Yes, I am.
Good.
Yes, I am.
I mean, I'm not blaming Janet Yellen because of all the times I've studied Greenspan and Bernanke. I mean, it's just absolutely disgusting what those guys did. I mean, it is disgusting.
Well, it is, but please, and it's not that I'm trying to pillory her, and I'm sure she's a lovely person. I've actually never met her. But ask yourself the question, in whose backyard did the subprime crisis blow up?
Hers.
When they were running the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Yep,
that's right.
where it hit.
I thought it was New York all the time.
Didn't she also oversee Nevada, Arizona?
Of course.
So that's where it all hit. That's where it all hit.
She looks like
so please, let's not be naive about a labor economist that hails from Berkeley. No.
Oh my God.
Nothing on Berkeley, but again, if you had practical people at the Fed and you had healthy dissent across the Fed and the ability to truly have an open discourse, then you wouldn't have Obamacare today, and you wouldn't have extended unemployment insurance over and over again at that 99-week limit. You would have retrained the workforce and put them back to work, as opposed to having the biggest stealth expansion of the social safety net since FDR was in office. Thank you, financed by the Fed.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Anyway, Danielle, thank you very much. You're always refreshing because you don't.
You don't sugarcoat it. And I want to recommend your books coming out in February of 2017 called Fed Up: An Insider's Take on Why the Federal Reserve is Bad for America. Look out for that book in February.
Please go on Amazon. Please go. Pre-sales are going well.
Perfect.
Please go on Amazon and buy it today.
Excellent.
And Danielle beats around the bush on this one, but most of these Fed people, they're out of touch with reality. They have most of them. They have more PhD economists than any other organization in the world, and these guys got their heads so far up there. You know what? They have no idea what's going on in the real world. They're much like my poor dad, and they make me nuts every time I hear them talking. These guys are employees, high-paid PhD employees, who are operating off academic theory all the time. Would you say that's fairly accurate?
Absolutely. In fact, you just read a whole chapter out of the book. I didn't realize you had a manuscript in your hand.
I didn't realize I was that intelligent either. I'm just like everybody else, fed up.
I do hold respect for many PhDs, but Milton Friedman himself, this is back in 1993, he made the observation that most of the PhDs in the world were either employed or contracted somehow at the Federal Reserve.
Right.
And that, by the way, this would lead to the institution itself being vulnerable to being compromised.
So, Danielle,
look where we are today.
Yep.
And I agree, because I always said PhD stood for poor, helpless, and desperate. So, Danielle, thank you very much.
Thank you. And go to Danielle's website, dmartinobooth.com.
And please please read Fed Up: An Insider's Take on Why the Federal Reserve is Bad for America and the World. It's a very important book to read. So thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Danielle. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
All right. Take care.
So we come back when the most popular part of our program is called Ask Robert. We'll be right back.
The Rich Dad Radio Show with Robert Kiyosaki.
Learn about money and investing while having fun. Go to richdad.com to play the Cashflow Classic game online. Your banker will never ask for your report card. What's most important in entrepreneurship and investing is your financial statement. So go to richdad.com and play Cashflow Classic to learn anytime, anywhere. Start playing today and take your first steps out of the rat race. Meet and interact with players who have the same goals and aspirations. Best of all, it's free. Go to richdad.com and start changing your life today by playing Cashflow Classic at richdad.com.
Threats to your business are everywhere. Choosing the right entity is a start, but basic asset protection isn't enough. You must take the next steps and follow the corporate formalities. If you don't, a creditor can pierce the veil of protection and get at your personal assets. Corporate Direct is owned by Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton. and is used by Robert Kiyosaki to properly maintain his entities. Call 800-600-1760 or visit online at corporatedirect.com for corporate cleanup and resident agent services in all 50 states. Avoid a piercing of the corporate veil. Go to corporatedirect.com.
Can you afford not to listen? Now back to the Rich Dad Radio Show with Robert Kiyosaki.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Once again, listen to our program, Rich Dad Radio, anytime, anywhere, on iTunes or Android. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We had Representative Dr. Ron Paul, and he's talking about the Fed. We also had Danielle DiMartino Booth talking about the Fed. But what is Trump going to do about all this? Because, Trump just basically blew out two political corrupt dynasties. Well, maybe not corrupt, but dynasties.
Maybe corrupt. Maybe absolutely
Clinton
corrupt.
And the Bushes. So Trump has really shaken up the world. But the third party to this whole thing is also the Federal Reserve Bank.
And Ron Paul's website is ronpaullibertyreport.com, and I understand he updates that weekly with videos and things like that, so great resource.
Right.
ronpaullibertyreport.com.
So things are changing so fast, so that's why please get your friends to listen to this program.